So, hi everyone, welcome and thank you for joining us in the first segment of the India Interest Group's Writing Mentorship Program. I am Renalini Watson, the president of the India Interest Group, a chapter of the Fulbright Alumni Association. Today's presentation explores the evolving landscape of artificial intelligence in the realm of writing. Our program is sponsored by a grant from the U.S. State Department and one of our board members, Dr. Xavier Swamikarnu. A quick word about the IIG's Writing Mentorship Program. It is designed to assist with overcoming common obstacles plaguing a work in progress, such as wordsmithing, and knowledge limitations regarding specific content or disciplines. Guidelines and a sign-up form for mentors and mentees will be sent with a recording of today's session. So if you'd like to be a mentor, seems like we have a few people here who would definitely qualify. Please do sign up. So in this introduction to the Writing Mentorship Program, I am delighted to present today's speaker, Mr. Akshay Dalal, who will guide us through an exploration of practical tips and strategies for responsible and informed integration of AI, ensuring it thoughtfully complements your own voice in academic and professional writing. Akshay is the head of risk and compliance for Google Cloud across the Middle East, Turkey, and Africa. That's the Meta region. A risk and compliance leader with experience enabling global organizations to scale securely across diverse regulatory environments. His work focuses on building and implementing governance models that support innovation while protecting trust and ensuring responsible growth. He regularly navigates the complex intersection of regulation, strategy, and innovation. He is passionate about how technology, including AI, can be leveraged for growth and creativity. In today's session, Akshay will delve into how AI tools are currently being utilized by writers for various purposes, from brainstorming and content generation to editing and translation. The discussion will highlight the numerous benefits that AI can offer, such as increased efficiency, overcoming writer's block, and enhancing creativity. However, he will also critically examine the challenges and ethical considerations associated with AI-driven writing, including issues of originality, bias in AI models, data privacy, and the potential impact on human authorship. Finally, Akshay will address common pitfalls to avoid when integrating AI into writing practices, ensuring a balanced and informed approach to this transformative technology. Akshay earned a bachelor's in engineering from the University of Delhi and an MBA from the University of Oxford. He has led governance and community organizations, including president of the St. Catherine's College MCR at Oxford, and formerly as the head of the UK and EMEA chapters of the Old Cenarian Society, an alumni association of our high school alma mater, the Lawrence School Senar in India. When he isn't working, he spends time with his family, which includes his dog and a newborn baby. He also loves to hike. Akshay?
Thank you, Mrinalini. I wish I can steal that for later. I'm gonna send that to everyone that keeps asking me for it. And thank you all for taking out the time, wherever you're joining from, if it's late night in India and early morning in the States. For me, it's around 8 o'clock in the evening as well. And I'm really, really excited to, join in and share some of, the work that I've been doing at Google, and also the topic that we have at hand is, can AI make you a better writer? I know I spoke to a smaller group before I joined one of the India Interest Group chapter meetings. There was so much discussion and so much debate about some folks having not used AI at all, and some folks had seen the potential, that we thought this was an excellent topic to sort of, deep dive a little bit more on. So thank you again for having me. I do have a couple of slides just to talk about the history of AI, what is generative AI, and what is the key there. how can writers use it? How are they using it, and where not to use it? And of course, as Mrinali said, you know, um, what are the common pitfalls? What are the common questions in this area? And also, if we have time, we can actually, do a little bit of demos. I did take some screenshots, but nothing like demoing on your own and seeing the power of AI. But most importantly, this presentation is for you. So please, this full hour is, let's try making it more engaging. If you have any questions, please raise your hand. Please ask, because I want to make sure that I can answer to the best of my ability, and if not, I can come back later with the right answer as well. I'm not AI, so I don't want to hallucinate and make something up. With that said, let me try sharing my screen. And if everyone can give me an emoji or a thumbs up that they can see my screen. Is that visible? Awesome. Thanks, John. Amazing. So, topic of today, can AI make you a better writer or not? And I think the first slide that I did have was an introduction about myself, but Mrinali has done an excellent job about this. Um, Before Google, I was with Amazon Web Services or Amazon. And if you don't know anything about Amazon, apart from, like, say, the deliveries, Amazon is a big writing culture. uh, like, nothing moves at Amazon without writing a 6-pager at Amazon. I don't know if you've heard this or not, right? There is no presentations, there's no meetings. You have to write your thoughts. You have to write why this product or why this problem needs to be solved. So, I've been involved in writing, not at the level of intellect and like the depth as you have, but writing to explain your thoughts, to senior leadership and sometimes even Jeff Bezos. That means that, your writing has to be damn good. And I really wish, sometimes AI was there to help me, in those stages, because, these are all thoughts that I had to put down on paper and do it like that. Just while I'm also bringing that up, Manali, there are a few folks in the waiting room. It just pops up on my screen. I don't know if you can admit them. It's not. Awesome. So back to Amazon. Amazon was a big writing culture. We had to write 6 pages. We had to write why we think it's important. Um, and a lot of times, I did think, hey, I wish there was something that could really help me, in this. And that's like, sooner rather than later, AI and generative AI came along, right? So what is the agenda of today? I'd start with a little bit about what was artificial intelligence and what is generative AI. It's pretty hard in today's world if you've not come across these two terms, but it's important to also differentiate, how the evolution of artificial intelligence and generative AI sort of came into being. What are the uses of AI in, let's say, in writing, in academic professions, in creative writing, in journaling? Um, I'll demo a particular tool called NotebookLM, especially, how writers have been using it and how you as mentors can explore it, with your mentees, or, if this recording gets shared, then, for mentees or even for your own research, this is a tool that, is your personal AI research assistant tool. This, in the last year in 2024, got voted as the best generative AI/AI tool in the world. It is a Google product, but I'm not advertising this from Google's behalf. It's an excellent tool. I use it on a daily basis, especially for my work, which is around regulatory, like reading a lot of regulations, reading a lot of policy. So it's definitely my personal AI tool to go to, uh, focusing a little bit about the art of the prompt. And then, how do we preserve integrity in the age of AI? I did shuffle the agenda a bit around, like in the last minute, and apologies, but the agenda overall looks like this, right? So without without spending more time, let me jump into what the goals of a session that I thought we could go out of today with, right? Most importantly, let's move beyond the hype. Let's explore some applications, especially relevant to the mentees that you might be, mentoring, especially in academic writing, professional writing, creative writing, uh, the custom AI tutor that we spoke about, the notebook LM, how do we sort of use to sort of do that, and power of the prompt. If there's one thing that you should step away from today, is learning the art of prompting, because I'm sure everyone who has come across generative AI tools today you do interact with it in any way or form, right? Sometimes you talk to it, sometimes you sort of send a photo to it, sometimes you write to it. That is what a prompt is. But what I want you to sort of go away from today's meeting is what is a perfect prompt, right? How to use the prompt in the most effective way. A lot of times we'll come to realize that we are prompting in a way that's quite amateurish, right? So hopefully after today's session, you can sort of go away, knowing what a good prompt is. So what is generative AI and what is AI? And if you look at the image to the left, that is something that I did generate, for this meeting before, so I went, but let's come back to the picture later. What was AI? AI at its core has been around for a very long time, right? And it was mostly about pattern recognition in data. But before I even start, can anyone sort of come off mute and say, what do they think is artificial intelligence? Sorry to put on
Machine
this.
learning, that the machine learns itself.
Close, Dina?
Yeah,
Anyone else?
Hi, this is Gabriel Gomez. I guess I think it's a technology that is allowing programs to learn more on their own from data sets.
Again, very close and very close to what Dina also said. Thanks, Gabriel. Any last guesses on what artificial intelligence is? I think Dana and Gabriel have given half the answer. So the other half is if anyone wants to take a guess. Going once, twice, thrice. Okay, awesome. So Dana and Gabriel already gave half the answer, which is like machines learning from data sets and recognizing patterns. But what artificial intelligence really is the ability for a machine to actually make decisions that are humanly intelligent, right? Or intelligent enough that a human would make, right? So that's what artificial intelligence is. And like a lot of times you'll have, terms that fly around in today's news is artificial general intelligence or super artificial intelligence. That's like, when our machines decision making surpasses what a human would make, right? And that's a few years down the line that, AGI is what they keep talking about. But artificial intelligence at its core is like machines that have learned from patterns from data, but actually now are making decisions what a human would make, right? So that's what artificial intelligence is. And generative AI is sort of, let's say, a leap forward from what artificial intelligence was. Now, artificial intelligence and pattern recognition, machine learning has been around from the 1960s, right? It's like sort of teaching the machines that, hey, this is what a cat is, or this is what a dog is. And, in previous coding terms, you would define this to the machine. You would say, hey, cat has 4 legs, 2 eyes, 2 ears, right? Or a dog has 4 legs, 2 eyes, 2 ears, and you would define it as parameters and teach the machine so that when the question arises, the machine could answer. But generative AI is sort of, let's say, almost 10x, 100x, 1000x times what artificial intelligence is. It's built on neural networks. It's built on transformer architecture, where it's identified loads and loads of patterns. Imagine it's read the entire internet, what's available, and now it has so much knowledge that when you ask him a question, it can actually answer it based on the patterns that like the question is related to, right? That's what called parameters are. So it not only understands what your question is, but what generative AI really does differently from artificial intelligence is its ability to generate new and more content, whether it's text, whether it's images, whether it's audio, whether it's code, that artificial intelligence could not. Artificial intelligence could only answer, but generative AI can actually generate this as well through a prompt. Now coming back to the image there, right? So this is something that I told Gemini to make. I said, draw an image of a dinosaur on a skateboard and then an astronaut playing a guitar on top of it on the um, on a desert, right? And it sort of took my prompt and tried to generate what I was thinking about this. So that's the power of generative AI, which is there today. And as I guess my CEO also puts it, it's more transformational than electricity. It's like the new frontier, of our times, right? And super powerful in that. But at the heart of, artificial intelligence or generative AI is what we call is the prompt, right? And any of you who would have used generative AI today, whether it's through, audio, chat, text, photos of like sending something to ChatGPT or Gemini, that's all prompt. Prompt is any instruction that you give to that machine. However, a lot of times we are very lazy with prompts. We just, give it something and just ask a question. But in the context of, let's say, today's session, I want to say that there is a perfect prompt to get the best thing out of, of generative AI. If we be lazy with generative AI, it'll also be lazy because we're not giving it more content. So a few rules to remember when you go about prompting is garbage in, garbage out. So the more lazy that we are with generative AI, the more lazy it is because it doesn't know. It's just going to recognize some patterns and give you what is answer there. So you want to be more specific with it. The second thing is to provide it more examples. And there are a few sort of, things with prompting, which I can go into in a bit. But, the art of the prompt is to sort of play along these three different lines. Number one, you want to assign a persona to the sort of machine that you're interacting with, right? So in today's session context, you can say, hey, act as a peer reviewer, like a very skeptical peer reviewer, or act as a copy editor specializing in this text, or assume the persona of a particular category that you're sort of dealing with and you're creating my argument. So the machine sort of gets that context and like I have to act in that capacity. That's super important and one of the best ways to sort of get something out of the prompt. Then number next is to sort of define the task to the machine. What do you want it to do? Do you want to generate a list of potential counter arguments, or do you want to review your text? Do you want it to brainstorm with it? And at the same time, you want to set the constraints and the boundaries of the prompt of the machine. Do you want to give it examples and only want to look at examples? Do you want it to be creative and look on the internet? Or do you want it to be sort of creative and generate something of its own, right? And how do you want it to give the answers? Like, do you want it in a particular format, like a paragraph, like an image, like a video, like an audio, like a list, and it's sort of, you can set the constraints. Very important is the art of the prompt is like, when you're interacting with these machines, you interact it in a way where you set the persona, you set the action, and you set the boundaries. Now, this is just the basic good prompt. You can also have more better prompts by sort of giving it examples, by making sure that, it has more context. So context and, all these three things is very important when you're sort of prompting that machine. A few examples, especially like when we are in the space of creator dialogue, let's look at a few weak prompts and let's look at a few strong prompts. For academic purposes, like argument deconstruction, right? Weak prompt would be just tell me about post-colonial theory, right? Now the machine knows a lot about post-colonial theory, but it does not know what it needs to go. So it'll just give you anything that sort of comes to its mind, right? But if you sort of give it that, the three things that I said, act as a critical theorist. What are the three most compelling modern critiques of Said's Orientalism? Frame them as questions I should address in my upcoming journal article. So it's given it the persona, the action, the constraint. For creative writing exploration, like a weak prompt example is, hey, write a story about detective. It can write anything, right? It has so much information that is learned from the internet. It can write anything. It can hallucinate stuff. However, a strong prompt generate 3 alternative backstories for a cynical 1940s detective from Chicago who's secretly a failed poet. How would each backstory influence his motivation in solving the murder of a socialite? You see that, you're giving it more context, more data to sort of come up with the right response for you. And lastly, I think creative block, right? Uh, think about this, a prompt idea that you'd want to give to saying, I'm stuck on chapter 3, right? My protagonist needs to discover a hidden truth about her family. Give me 5 unconventional ways this reveal could happen, avoiding common mystery traps, right? So again, these are good prompts, good suggestions where you can sort of, prompt the machine to get something out of it. Now, this is a super important topic that I wanted to sort of touch upon when it comes to generative AI. What is prompting? What is a good prompt? And how to sort of use it in a way. I'll stop there for any questions. Is there anything in the chat that sort of came up? Sorry, I know John sort of mentioned, so let me take that right away. My wife is a writer. She often enters contests which require that AI cannot be used. Thoughts. That's super important, John. And I'll sort of come to the, the where to use AI and where not to use AI part. Super important in today's world that, there's a big debate about, authorship and IP and whether AI should use or not. And I'm completely on board with that. So, super important on where should we ethically use AI and where should we not. And I'll tell you from my perspective why. But of course, it's up to everyone's usage about how do they want to use AI and how not. But that's a super important topic, John, and we'll cover that in a bit. Any other questions on prompting or did you think that this was useful, and have you been using prompts in a way like this, or have you been being lazy like myself and sometimes just audio texting, whatever, to the machine? Go ahead, Rima.
Hi, Akshay. Thank you so much. This is so helpful. I've been using this ChatGPT, and I thought I'm doing amazing work, but you just taught me that no, I wasn't. And there's so much better that I can do through the right prompt. I think this is a beautiful tip. I'm so glad I'm attending it. Thank you.
No, thanks, Rima. It's what I learned as well, right? Like you come to realize the more context and the more information and the more constraints that you can give it, the better your
Right.
responses are.
Absolutely.
And the best part is you can save it for later as well. Maybe if we get some time to demo it, I'll show you something which is called system instructions. So you can set them at the top. So it knows that, hey, any response I give is in that boundary. So it's super important to sort of learn this. But thanks, Rima.
Thank you.
And thanks, Pooja, for your chat as well. Awesome. I will, but feel free to, pause anytime and raise your hand. I want it to be interactive. I don't want it to be, someone just sort of, going through slides as well. Now, I spoke about a personalized AI toolkit, which is, NotebookLM, which I did say, in 2024 was voted as the best AI product out there. So what is that? Right? A lot of times you have ChatGPT, which is like you don't know how to, your only mode of interaction and the only mode of output up till recently was text, right? Like you would say something and it would just give you a text back, or you would voice note it something and it would give you a text back. And of course, recently you can have an active dialogue with it, and now it's going to generate images as well. More recently, it's generated, videos as well that, WhatsApp uncles have started forwarding and said, India's landed on Mars and started walking. So that's all AI generated, by the way. So, Notebook LLM is definitely a tool which I would highly recommend in this mentorship program, and I'll talk about it as well as why do I think. Now, Notebook LLM, and also sort of show it on the next screen, and maybe if we have time, we can demo it as well, is a tool where, you can upload a lot of stuff. It's all private. It's not going to learn anything. It's all your drive. You can upload research papers, you can upload interview transcripts, any theory, any articles, right? Any targeted journal that you're targeting. And the AI will only reason over that content that you give it. Now, think about it. Like if you're sort of, writing for an American journal or like a particular kind of style, you can sort of upload 5 or 10 articles from that journal and say, hey, based on these provided journals, create a style guide that, what does a typical good article look like? Then review my draft and say, suggest 5 high level changes to align it better with these conventions. Sometimes, even lazier people like myself would have been like, this is what a good blog post. I do this all the time, by the way, for Google Cloud blogs. I give them, good blogs that I see that Google Cloud has written, and there's something that I want to write. I do have the thought process for it, and I've just put notes and I say, hey, this is what a good blog looks like. This is what a good blog structure looks like. Now help me adapt, my blog to that, right? So that gives you a little bit more, it helps you, it assists you in that way. And again, like if you want to master specific vernacular, like upload, transcripts of talks or interviews and say, hey, analyze these rhetorical devices, like informal rhetorical devices in these provided transcripts. review this as a formal paragraph I've written and suggest how to rephrase it in a presentation, in a direct talking style that is more engaging and formal as well. Now, I don't want to sort of, keep it at a slide. Let me show you how it looks like. Now, this is a notebook LM of all of Shakespeare's play, right? So all 48 of them that he's written, you can upload it on the left. I don't have a cursor that, or I don't know if you can see my cursor on screen, but you see on the left, like, it's uploaded all the Shakespeare's play that is there, right? Uh, in the middle part of it, you have the start typings. This is like the chat interface that you can chat with AI who has information of all of these sources, and you can talk about or ask it questions in that particular way. It's saying, what distinct thematic concerns regarding love, power, and conflict emerge amongst these sources, right? How do the characters express their certain things? And on the right is the best part, right? Maybe actually, if it's better, maybe let me take this off screen and let me share this as well, so that it's even better. Why should we are in this presentation? Okay, let me share this. Are you able to see my notebook LM? Hold on. Sorry. Able to see it now? Yeah.
I
So
see
think.
Shakespeare the complete play.
Sorry.
Oh.
Yeah. So see, these are all the plays that Shakespeare had written, which, they've sort of, put as sources. Now, all of that is here. This is, the chat interface where you can sort of ask it questions. For example, let's say, what distinctive linguistic and dramatic elements characterize the diverse narrative forms presented? Let's say if, sorry, was someone coming in to ask a question? Okay. Maybe it was just my machine trying to make a noise, right? And while that sort of things, you've got various things on the right, and see, it's sort of, while that sort of brings up, you'll sort of realize that, it's taken these sources. And the best part about this is that give you responses and it tags where it sort of come from, right? So it'll say, hey, I saw this from this particular source and I've tagged it for you for your help, right? It can be anything. Like we are looking into Shakespeare's like plays over here, but whatever sources you want to put here, you can even add more sources. Like let's see if we want to add more sources, you can sort of, you have an option. Like this is one that's already preset up, but you can add more sources. You can add YouTube videos, you can add your own sort of thoughts on Shakespeare, you can add those on the left. And the best part is, you have this studio which allows you to sort of interact with AI in any way or form as well. Like for example, this right here, Shakespeare Strategies, Unpacking Lear Macbeth in this thing, this is actually a podcast. So if you click on this, it's sort of, let's say,
Welcome to the deep dive.
you don't
where
want
we
to
plunge into dense information to pull up.
I don't know if you could hear that, AI's voice, but this is essentially like it converts this entire thing into a podcast. So sometimes, you don't want to interact with it in a reading format. You want to listen to it because podcasts have become, quite interactive and an engaging way to get content. AI can do that. It can take all this information, make it into a podcast. This podcast also allows you to sort of join in, right? So you can sort of pause at any minute, and it's like a three-way conversation that you're having with two people who are having a podcast, and you can have that as well. Another thing that AI does really well, as generative AI, as we mentioned, is the ability to generate. So look at this one. It's generated Hamlet as a video from, the sources that it has. So if I sort of play this,
for over 400 years.
so sometimes like you want to interact with AI in a video format, and you'll see that, it's sort of generated content using Hamlet in a way that you visualize it and sort of take it in a videographic format as well. I'm going to hope that it sort of plays, or if not, but you sort of get the gist. Like, it's sort of created, the whole Hamlet play in sort of a video that you can digest it well. Let me try, restarting this because this was pretty cool.
For over 400 years, one play has pretty much defined. Is it about a 400-year-old?
I'm trying to sort of go forward and trying to see if it sort of.
But the ghost lays out the chilling, horrible truth. He was murdered in his sleep. Poison was poured into his ear by the very man who now wears his crown and sleeps with his wife, his own.
So I don't know if you got to hear that or not, but the thing that I was trying to say with the studio is that you've got multiple ways to interact with all the sources on the left and the chat in the between. And like you can have it as videos, you can have it as podcasts, you can have it as a study guide, as a report. Sometimes like you can have flashcards as well, if people want to study certain plays for their exams. So AI allows you to sort of do multiple things, and highly sort of recommend it to sort of explore NotebookLM as you sort of go into this mentor-menteeship program, because it's a tool that you can really set the constraints. And this is your AI playground that really helps you become, a better, it's sort of an AI research assistant, and I use it on a day-to-day basis as well. I'm going to stop sharing screen, go back to my presentation. But in the meantime, if there are any questions, please feel free to ask. Let me slideshow. Okay. Okay, I see something in the chat as well. Oh, awesome. You could hear the podcast and the video. Yeah. And what did you think about it, Pooja, John, Gabriel? Something that you would use? I definitely use it in my particular work, but I'm definitely keen to hear your thoughts if this is really something that you would use.
Yeah, I thought that was really fantastic because it's kind of easing into things that people don't want to do on their own. So it's very collaborative. It's good for students because they'll get interested in things that they feel are more visually appealing as well. And I did have a question though. So is this just like a regular login, or is it a paid resource? The Notebook LLM. Thank you.
Excellent question. Completely free. So that's why it's a great tool to use, and again, completely free. If you go to Notebook LM, on Google, you'll sort of see it, and the first thing you'll see, try Notebook LM, and you'll see some Notebook LMs already sort of set up. But the best part is, utilize it for your own. And the one of the best things about this is a lot of times, there's this big debate about, where is my data going? Like, what if I upload something? And we'll come to that later. But Notebook LLM, anything that you put onto it is yours, yours only, private. Google does not learn from it. It doesn't go anything. The entire playground is where the data resides and stays. So nothing goes out of it, nothing goes like away from it. So that's the best part about this. Sorry, Iman, go ahead.
Yeah, so when you say that we add the resources and from there it creates, so does that mean that it all depends on how much resources we add? Like if we don't add resources, then if we want something to be done, that won't be possible? Is this what it means? Like you said, it can be used as a drive. So first we add the.
Yeah. I think that's the best part about it. It's like the sources are super important, but sometimes you don't have the right source. And this, like, maybe if we have time, we can go back to it. Like sometimes if you want to learn about a particular topic, but you don't have the right source, it has the option to search for sources, right? So, it's like a Google search that you did in the past, where you would say, hey, I want to learn about this particular topic, and you would just put it on Google, and like some videos would show up, some articles would show up, some news articles would show up, some, like whatever you might have might show up. And you can sort of click, 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 and say, okay, add as a source. So it sort of puts it on the left for you. right? So you can add videos, you can have audios, you can have, let's say, articles, you can have web pages. So all of that, and then that becomes the boundary from where it sort of goes. Sometimes, if it's like, I don't know how many of you use it. Like Google had this "I'm feeling lucky," tab. Sometimes it has, okay, just search, and sometimes it had this tab saying "I'm feeling lucky." Uh, now Google still had it, like, but it feels like ages ago. But that was like, sometimes you just don't know, what you want to do, and Google will just sort of show up the best result, that it thinks. That was AI at its best, right? But now you can just sort of say, hey, show me the top 10 searches for this particular thing. It'll show up some searches that it feels that you're looking for, and then you can add that also.
Thank you.
Where do we draw the line between AI assisted and AI generated work? John, excellent question, and I know it's related to your earlier question as well. So maybe we'll sort of strive ahead and sort of touch upon this topic as well, which is super important in today's world. And I think that's the next section that I was going into anyway. So, which is, how do we preserve the integrity in this age of AI and AI generated AI, right? And it's super important to understand, where the challenges and the gaps of AI really are today, and where to sort of really use it from. So first of all is the originality part of it, right? As sort of discussed, that artificial intelligence and generative artificial intelligence, it generates based on patterns, but not understanding. It's looking for patterns based on what you're typing, and it's looking at the next best answer that it can give for you. AI can do pattern recognition, but the final words, arguments, insights are supposed to be our own, right? It's a tool for thought, but not a machine to sort of prose, right? So like that's super important as we sort of go into this age. Second, it has no lived experience, no perspective, and no really genuine insight. It cannot create groundbreaking work, not today. Maybe in the age of artificial general intelligence, super intelligence, it start taking in like things. But again, that spark, that driver is still you. It's like a steering wheel that you steer it in. And the best example of it is the prompts, right? If you just give it a weak prompt, it's going to go in all directions, right? You are still the driver of, this is where I want to go. This is the speed that I want to go. This is the destination. This is the speed. This is the sort of track that I want to go into. So that's still there. AI does not have that experience. Third, which I think every one of us know, is that, AI sometimes invents facts with full confidence, right? It can invent facts, citations, data. One of my professors at Oxford, was utilizing AI in this early generative AI stages, and it sort of gave him some work that apparently he had only written, but it never existed, right? So you are still the fact checker, and every single claim that AI makes, of course, has to be vetted and made sure that it's saying the right thing. And the most importantly, when to sort of step away from AI is, when you're forming your core thesis or your central argument, or when you're writing personal statements or reflections, and when the goal of the exercise is sort of, writing and critical thinking, that's where you want to step away from AI. When do you want to use AI is, all the things is to sort of assist, to sort of probe, and sort of to be the sort of, research assistant that can help you on the way, but not the sort of, main output of it, right? So that's super important to sort of remember that there are limitations of AI and that it can and cannot do. So John, to your point, like, where do we draw the line? Use AI to assist you, to sort of probe you, to help you become a better writer. But AI generated work, as you rightly said, many a times, gets caught, and there are systems being developed by big tech companies that can catch AI generated work. There are systems that, there are competitions that don't allow for AI generated work, but AI assistance is still something that I would highly sort of recommend, because it helps you become a better writer. It helps you, it's almost a teacher that's 24/7 available in whatever language available, and has access to about, 200 languages, has access to the entire internet to make you a better writer, right? So AI assistance, as you rightly said, still good. AI generated can be caught, and again can't be copyrighted as well. It's something that that you can't vouch and say it's yours. And that also brings me to sort of the last slide that I had. What are some of the critical questions around privacy and ownership? One of the best questions or most important questions that we get is, does AI use my input to train itself, right? And the answer is, if you are using free versions like ChatGPT, and if you're not paying for it, often most likely they are using that data to train itself. It is using that data to train again and say, okay, what are people asking for? What answers did they like? What answers did they not like? You sometimes see that ChatGPT or Gemini sometimes give you two responses and asks you, which one did you like more? That's sort of using that data to train itself more, right? So most important rule of thumb here, always read the privacy policy and never input any unpublished work or any sensitive work that you might be working on, because most likely that's going to go into its repository to do it. There are ways to get around it, which is the paywall, right? If you pay for, ChatGPT, and a lot of education institutions like Gemini is available for free. So Gemini Pro is available for free. That usually costs a lot. But for education institutions and university students, you've got Perplexity that's free, you've got Gemini Pro that's free, and even I think for ChatGPT, I don't know the basics, but I know that they've got a big education arm that's also free. So use the enterprise version of it, because that means that any data that you put into it or interact with it stays within that boundary. It's not going somewhere. The tool that I presented, NotebookLM, that does not sort of share information. The files you upload or sources you upload stays there. The playground is there. It does not sort of go in there. So. And again, I think to John's point, who owns the intellectual property, right? Like what happens to AI and the stuff that gets generated out of it? IP law, especially in the age of generative AI, highly evolving topic. Purely AI generated work cannot be copyrighted. I think most regulations stand by that today, saying that, if it's AI generated work, you can't sort of claim that it was yours, even if you sort of input it and the output was given to you, because most likely it's AI generated and it can be highly close to, the training set that it's on. So, however, most tech companies agree that creators should own the IP and the copyright on it. So as long as you interact with it and you would use it in an AI assisted way, change the output, add on top of it or delete it and edit it, that's sort of, applying your own flavor to it, and you would own the copyright to that final output. So anything that's AI generated it cannot be copyrighted. However, if you play with it, add on to top of it, or use it in that AI system way, you can claim copyright on it as well. And the last thing that I did not sort of add on to it, but I know Mrinalini mentioned at the start, was bias. A big question in AI today is, is the AI biased? And you'll see that term sort of coming a lot. In traditional AI world, and even at the start of generative AI, we spoke about pattern recognition, that we gave it data and we gave it patterns for it to recognize from or to sort of learn from. But that data, sometimes is limited to, training sets that are readily available for it to learn from. Now, what do I mean, right? Suppose I am building an AI or a machine, and I've only read history books. I've not read geography books. I've not read biology books. And I sort of, I give it all the history books I have, and I say, okay, you've learned everything. Now I just put it out there. And suddenly I ask it a question around some other topic. It might just hallucinate based on whatever data it's sort of given it to you. And that's, when you sort of extrapolate it in today's world, a lot of training sets that were available from Western countries. We did not have regional languages as readily available training sets on the internet. We didn't have regional, videos or, dialects that were, available on the internet. Sometimes, the initial versions of AI were biased in nature, right? Like it would give you a response that were more westernized because that's what I learned from. I sometimes, used and Mrinalini can talk more about, her experience in boarding school. But both of us went to a boarding school where we were sometimes, asked to find solutions to our own problems. So, I never got to open up about, hey, I'm experiencing this problem and how should I go about it? And in generative AI's world, I thought, hey, I have this tool where I can share, some of the problems and it can give me some answers in that way. And this is like a personal, experience, right? So I shared, I'm facing this problem. Uh, and the answer it sort of gave me was completely westernized. It would not have sort of worked in an Indian family setting. So that's a good example of AI being biased in a way that sometimes it gives you responses that is based on its training sets. However, most technology companies have come to realize, and most regulators have come to realize that AI should not be biased. You should have a diverse set of training data. So that solution is now sort of getting fixed, because now you sort of take your answers and you give it more constraints and you give it a role and a persona. You sometimes can get responses that are more tailored to what you're really asking for, right? So bias is also a thing to sort of take into consideration, that sometimes you have to take it with a pinch of salt, that the training data is what's available on the internet today, and not everything might be available on the internet today, right? Especially when you're dealing with local languages, local dialects, or local flavor of information. So privacy, I've spoken about, intellectual property we've spoken about, and bias we've spoken about as well. But any other questions that you sort of routinely get? I think that is my last slide. But any other questions that you have on AI, I'd love to sort of take the time to answer that as well.
Question, Akshay. So where do you draw the line as far as what you could consider to be ethically yours? I know you touched on it, but do you change like the conjunctions or the order of the sentences? And then does that then become my work, or do we need to actually make more constructive changes to the output for it to be considered uh,
I think
novel?
there is no general line in today's world, like what you would sort of go with. Like, let's put it this way: if you just use AI's work, it's highly likely that plagiarism tools will catch it, right? Because we as big tech will also help exam universities catch content that's been ChatGPT generated or Gemini generated. It's super easy for us to say, hey, this was our training data and this has been generated from ChatGPT. A good example was that double hash that sort of came, that was not used quite often, but in today's world, I think everyone started seeing that double hash showing up in sentences. That was a clear indicator that this was generated by ChatGPT. There's no ethical line. However, there are good tools that big tech is sort of putting out there that can catch AI generated content. So again, as you sort of training your mentees, use it as like, hey, let's not sort of change the sentences, but use it as a thought provoker, as an assistant to make you a better writer. As I sort of mentioned, that you still want to sort of make sure that your core thesis or your sort of central argument is still your own, you're getting your own perspective. However, it can review it in the style, in the manner that you want it to it sort of work. It can be that it can be the Mrinalini when you're not available, right? You can sort of give it, hey, this is what good articles look like, this is what good content looks like, and when you're not available, this is a 24/7 resource for them to sort of interact with and say, hey, can I write it better? Give me 5 better responses, or give me 5 edits that I think will make it super, or give me 5 things that will that are not sort of hitting the mark. So AI has to be used in that way. In today's world, people can just take an entirely generated content and put it as theirs, and no one will sort of say anything. Of course, it can get caught later, and people can just switch.
Oh, wait, where'd you go? Uh, okay. Sorry about this. Not sure what happened here. Akshay, we can't hear you or see you anymore. Oh, there you are. Okay.
Hi, so sorry about that. I was about to WhatsApp you. I was like, I don't know what happened. I was saying that, long story short, people can just take content and sort of put it that way, but highly not recommended because it can get caught. So, in making sure that we use AI in an ethical way to sort of make us a better writer, not to sort of write it for ourselves. There's no line today. As John mentioned, there are competitions that say you can't use AI generated work, but how do they get to know that this is AI generated or not? I don't think there's an answer to that today.
Okay, so there are a couple of questions in the chat. Do you want to take them?
Sure. How do you check if AI is doing a good job? If it's biased, maybe in the same way you are biased, how can you find that? Amazing question, Jenna. That's where the role sort of comes into picture. And I know there are ways to sort of trick the AI to sort of do that, but the super important part is to sometimes just, give it that role saying, this is the answer, but review it in, let's say, you are a reviewer who's a expert in Indian mythology. Let's say if you're writing something in that way, you've written something, but you can give it a role and persona to act as a sort of skeptical reviewer or someone who's completely outside the box. So you can check, you can sort of give that constraints and that roles and personas to it. But how do you make sure that the AI is not biased? Is just by testing it as well, right? So give it personas, give it some sort of articles, see what the responses are sort of it giving you. You'll tend to find out, if it's biased or not. I sort of removed it from today's presentation because this bias was a conversation, in 2020, in 2021, 2022. But more recently, as you see that there's more data coming online, there's more sort of data sets, that big tech companies are buying, bias has sort of come down a lot because it's something that regulators also really pushed, these big tech companies on saying that, you cannot put out a model that's biased in nature. So even internally, whether it's OpenAI, whether it's Anthropic, whether it's Google, whether it's Microsoft, had to do a lot of, training before we sort of set something out to make sure that our responses were not biased in nature. So, give it personas, test it, and see if it's giving you the responses that you would expect. If it's not, you can sort of, understand that, maybe it's not trained in that way. You can give it more context, you can give it more sources. So NotebookLM, as I said, that you can give it more sources. Even if you're interacting with ChatGPT, you can sort of say, hey, this is what good content looks like. The more context it has, the less bias it will sort of give it. Hope that answers your question, but I can deep dive a little bit more if it does not. What does NotebookLM offer that makes it different and better than the other options? Amazing question, John. ChatGPT, as I sort of mentioned, sometimes, you were interacting it in a text way. I don't know if you've used ChatGPT or Gemini or any of these text LLMs today. Sometimes it feels very, singular model, and that you're just texting and it's sort of giving it a text back. What NotebookLM sort of gives you is an entire playground where you can give it sources. The data does not go out, so you are completely safe and secure that, and in that way that whatever I'm sharing sort of stays within the boundary. And the output, I think, is the best part of it, right? Given that we have a few minutes, let's also share, let's explore NotebookLM as well. This is super cool. And if there are any other questions, please sort of feel free to sort of bring it onto the chat. Can everyone see this screen? This is the sort of NotebookLM, right? So you can give it the sources on the left. You can interact it in the chat way, which is the basic sort of have. But this is the best part, right? So for example, this is a mind map feature that NotebookLM has, right? It can sort of generate a mind map of saying, okay, I had these plays that I had put on Shakespeare, and what are the various themes and characters it has, right? Let's say, what are the plays that had power and ambition in them? right? It can sort of deep dive a little bit more on that and say, okay, I want to deep dive in more about seeking power, which was, the place that focused more on that, right? So it allows you in a way to sort of interact with AI that's much more multimodal rather than just text in and text out, right? It allows you to visualize, and you can see on the left, right? It's sort of really sort of breaking down, and the responses in a textual manner as well. So this, I think, is the best part about NotebookLM. It allows you to sort of really be an AI research assistant tool for you. A good example, I think, as I mentioned in my work, I read a lot of regulations around the globe, that affect the cloud ecosystem. So I put it here, and I've sort of made notebook LMs for good cyber regulations, good AI regulations, good sort of, regulations that matter to it. And next time, let's say if there's a new regulation that I need to advocate for, I sort of put it in there and say, okay, what part of the regulations really align with global best practices or best practices that I see in these other regulations, and what does not, right? So it sort of really allows me to sort of expedite my time and only focus on the things that I want to focus on in a way, right? So that sort of makes NotebookLM a bit better because it allows you to interact, input and output in a way that sort of really helps. And as I think one of the questions was, is it free in nature? If I sort of go back to NotebookLM, completely free, you can sort of create your new notebook. This sort of screen pops up, right? And you can say, okay, upload sources. You can upload sources from websites, YouTube, text. You can also discover sources. Let's say I want to add, articles around the history of cricket. Let's say if I want to write, let's say I have no articles and I want to search for articles that I want to learn from, written by English author, sport writers. Let's say, this is something like that. So it's like a Google search. It can sort of really sort of give you the sources that you want to learn from. So hopefully, if my internet is still working at speed, it'll give me sort of the articles that I want to learn from. It's given me some PDFs, some websites, some Wikipedia pages. And if I sort of say, hey, okay, import, right, this is what I want to learn from, it's given me everything that I want to sort of do with it. It can make a podcast out of it. It can give me an audio overview. It can give me a video overview of this. It can give me a mind map out of this. It can give me all the things that, we were seeing in the Shakespeare side of things. It can give a lot of that. Like, let's look at the audio overview as well, right? So it'll sort of generate that podcast, all of these things. That you can sort of listen to in your day-to-day. So that makes NotebookLM a bit better as an AI research assistant and a way to sort of interact AI in a much more friendlier fashion. I hope that answers your question, John. Sorry, it was a bit lengthier. It's generating, so I don't want to sort of, keep you guys here. I know we're at a time. So any other questions?
I was wondering what the video overview would look like. I mean, it's taking text, or is it just the YouTube videos, etc., that are input?
It'll create a video for you. Let's say if you wanted to learn about, finest stem ginger biscuits, let's say,
That looks like
or let's say if you wanted to sort of learn this or learn the history of it. Let's say you took 10 recipes and you sort of put it there. The video overview sort of creates from those 10 sources, creates a video for you so that you can learn in a video format, right? So it's entirely generated on its own. It's not something that that's sort of like any YouTube video. It's new content that you sort of, it's for people who like to learn from videos. Some people learn from podcasts, so it'll generate that audio podcast. Sometimes it generates reports, sometimes it generates flashcards. So you can interact it in a way that's really suits you. Thanks, John. And I think Mrinali sort of share the presentation for that as
yeah. Okay, I think we are at a time. Are there any other questions? I don't want to keep Akshay, but if anyone else has questions that they'd like to share, last minute thoughts. just claps to Akshay for doing a fantastic job.
No, I just wanted to thank you and thank you for having me. I know it's early and late for people, but thank you for being an engaging audience, asking those questions, and I'm always available, via Mrinalini or via LinkedIn. If there's anything that you'd like to discuss. I know, Mrinalini, we have some broader engagement with the interest group, but always available to answer any of the questions as well.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Akshay. I really appreciate it. There's a lot that we need to process and digest with what you have shared today, and a lot to learn from this also. So we'll be in touch. This is just the first. We will be having additional presentations. Akshay will be doing additional presentations. And I will send out the information and this recording as soon as I can download it from the cloud and create the YouTube video for it.
Yeah, we can do that as well.
Yes.
Awesome. All right. Well,
Thanks,
see you.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. How do I?